This is the video for map projections part 2, and in this tutorial we're going to be creating an 11 by 17 map sheet that features 2 data frames, and within those data frames we're going to have 2 different map projections for small scale mapping for basically world features. So we're not going to be doing large scale mapping like we did with our city. We're going to be in a small scale mapping scenario now. And to get started, under part 2, under the directions, we have 6 steps that we're going to accomplish, and we're going to be using this data from this bit.ly link here, which I've already downloaded to the desktop. So to get started, we want to make sure that we're out of our part 1 mapping, and we're just going to be opening a new MXD, and we're going to call that new MXD map 2 in just a second. We're going to be doing a layout sheet, 11 by 17 map sheet, and we're going to have that be horizontal or landscape. We're going to be creating a map frame, and then a second map frame. We're going to copy that map frame. We're going to be creating bookmarks. We're going to adopt 2 different world projections for each data frame. We're going to use a graticule to better display the projection. And then we're going to finally do some final map design and export as a PDF. And we're also going to insert our data frame properties via dynamic text. Okay, so to get started, we need to be in ArcMap, and I'm going to clear out any connections that I have. So I'm just going to do a quick new connection. So I want to have my class 4 assignment data already downloaded, and I say OK. And under that connection, I should see my world boundaries file 2002. And let's just go ahead and make sure that that has a defined projection. Remember from our in-class tutorial, this is a WGS 1984 feature set. So it may or may not, depending on which version you're using, have spatial reference on it. In this case, it doesn't. And we need to, before we do anything, let's go ahead and define that before we go any further. So I have not saved this ArcMap session. All I'm doing right now is just defining the projection on this original feature. So to do that, Arc Toolbox, we're going to go to Projections and Transformations. So I'm going to go to Data Management here, go down to Projections and Transformations, and I'm going to define the projection. So I'm going to define it as 2002 file. And then the coordinate system here now, we're going to go ahead and go to Geographic Coordinate Systems, down to World, and under World we're going to use WGS 1984. Say OK. So that's going to run it, and it shows us that it succeeded. Now, if you're not getting this dialog window and you want to have it, what you can do is you can go to, I believe it's Geoprocessing, and go to Geoprocessing Options, and Background Processing. If it's clicked on Enable, it means it's going to run in the background. You can't see anything that's going on, so you may want to click that off so that you can see your processing happening in that window. Okay, so this is defined now. That's exactly what we wanted. And remember, we're looking at the original feature, so we still have unknown units down in the lower right-hand corner. That's fine. We're not going to save this MXD. Let's go to File, New, and we are going to now make our new Map 2 MXD. So this gives us a new window, mapping instance, and let's go to Layout View. And right now we can see our data frame. We're going to keep that data frame, but we're going to make the page on the outside 11 by 17. So let's go to File, Page and Printout. We're going to go to Tabloid, and here we're going to do a landscape tabloid 11 by 17 and say OK. And this we want to save. This is going to be our originating shell for our assignment here. So we're going to go Save As, and I'm going to put it right next to Map 1. I'm going to call this Map 2. Map 2 MXD, say Save. Great. So now what I want to do is under my table of contents, I have 1 layers, and it's just called layers. That's fine. We're going to call this guy Frame 1. And we can see that the name changes. We're just going to copy and paste him. So we're going to do, or actually, before we do that, let's drop in our feature. So under Frame 1, we're just going to go Add Data. And we're going to go to our WBF 2002. This guy should come in with no warnings because now we've reprojected him, and we can see on the bottom, our status window, we have a decimal degrees. That's exactly as it should be. It's nice and centered within the map. If you want to make sure it's centered, you can just do a zoom to layer, and that's going to put it right in the middle. And let's make a bookmark right now. So this is going to be our center location for both our maps. So bookmark, create a bookmark. We're going to call this Map 2. And let's go ahead and copy both this frame and all its contents as is right now. So the way to do that is we just click on Make It Active. We can do a right click and we can say Copy. and then do a right click outside and say paste. And we can see what happens over here in our new windows that we have 2 new frames. Now we want to rename this in just a second. So let's move our frame over. And the active frame is the one that we're moving. So that's frame 1 right here up at the top. We're going to call this frame 2. Okay, so we've got frame 1 and a frame 2. And we're going to save this MXD. We're going to update it. So we'll just do a save. And to navigate these along, you're going to use your keyboard and your arrow keys on the lower right hand side. If you want to get very exact, you just push down Shift, and that gives you much smaller moves. So I want to get this right lined up with the other one. That looks like it's right on there. And I'm just going to move him over. It doesn't have to be exactly positioned on the page, but have them occupying 2 halves of your 11 by 17 sheet. Okay, now the next step, what we're going to do is we have these 2 data frames. They're sitting in WGS 1984. And if I click on the data frame properties and go to properties, we can see that it's adopted my geographic coordinate system, WGS 1984. Instead of actually reprojecting the files, what we're going to do is do basically on-the-fly projection, but we are going to change the map frame properties to represent a projected coordinate system for world mapping. So to do that, what we're going to do is under my frame here, this one's frame 2 over on my right hand side. I'm going to go back to frame 1. So it's this one. We can see it active in my table of contents. It makes it a little bit bold. This one I'm going to do a right click on and go to properties, and I want to go into projected coordinate systems, and we're going to choose a world option. So those are sitting down here at the bottom. I have world and then sphere face world. And from your readings this week, you will learn a little bit about world projections, and some of them are very fanciful. Other ones are kind of classic reference maps, world reference maps that we may have seen in grade school in the back of the room. Let's pick out one that's very classic, which is Robinson. So I'm going to go down and see if I can find Robinson here. There's Robinson. I'm going to leave it up to you which 2 that you decide to do for your turn in. Any of the world projected systems are fine. And I'm going to put Robinson in and say apply and say OK. Now it's hard, we can see that a transformation has taken place, and we can see that our features have been kind of scrunched up a little bit and placed into more of a globe type appearance. But to really see these, what we can do is we can go to frame 1, because that's the one that we're active on, and we can add a graticule. That'll allow us to see it a little bit better. So let's go into graticules, and for this small scale mapping, either 5 or a 1 degree, or actually, excuse me, a 30 degree is probably the one that we want, 30 or 10. So let's try 30 and add that. 30 looks really great. It's not too small, it's not too big, and importantly, it doesn't take up a lot of space either. So this is just a feature now, and we can change the color. This is up to you how you're going to design this map sheet. I'll just put it in right now. Let's make it a purple color. That's a little garish, but it'll work for right now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the other map frame, and let's save our MXD at this point because we're kind of halfway through. So let's go to File and do a save. And then we're going to go over to Map Frame 2 over here, and we're going to go to Properties. And under Properties, we're going to go pick another one. So let's go to Projected Coordinate Systems, and we're going to go down to, let's do World, let's do the Spheres, and let's try, just trying to think about what might be interesting. Let's do a maybe stereographic, which would be very dramatic. Let's try a stereographic, and we'll say apply it. And it says, this coordinate system has a geographic coordinate system that differs. You might have some alignment issues. That's okay because we're not doing any GIS analysis. We're just doing map appearance. So we'll just say, yes, that's okay, and say okay. And now we can see that we have a pretty dramatic change in our feature. And let's go ahead and make sure that he is centered. So I'm going to do a right click and go to Zoom to Layer. And on this particular feature, what I want to do now is drop in that graticule. So for frame 2, I'm going to say add data, and we're going to put our 30 in, our graticule 30, add him in. And we can see, wow, that's a pretty dramatic map projection that is going to be highly accurate in some areas and highly distorted in other areas. So here we have our 2 map frames now that we've developed, and they're world-based, and what we want to do now is we want to basically tell the map frames what type of projection system we're in. So I'm going to go back to my first one here. I'm going to make him active. And this one, I'm going to insert dynamic text. And I'm going to say coordinate system. And he puts in World Robinson. I'm going to put him up in the corner here. Now it's important, if you leave your table of contents as layer one, and don't change those names, your dynamic text may not take hold. It needs to see these data frames named differently for this to happen. So now I'm going to go over to my other one here, and I'm going to go to insert a dynamic text coordinate system. And great, it gives us my stereographic, and we are set. Personally, I'm not a big fan of map frame borders. If you, in your design process, now I expect you to actually design out these final maps and get them to appear exactly how you would like them to be. If you want to get rid of your map frame edge, what you can do is go to Properties and go to the frame, and you can see here's the border. If you want no border, you just go up to the top and say None, and say Apply, OK, and then we'll go over here and we'll say Properties, Border, None. All this is up to you, these visual things. I personally like to have kind of empty, blank mapping spaces. And this is essentially the assignment from here on out. So what we would do is we would go ahead and save this as our map2 MXD, and then we would do an export. Okay, so we'd export the map. This is going to be map2 PDF. I'm going to just stick it on the desktop, and I'll say save. And let's just do, before we upload it, we would want to do a visual check. So let's go take a look at our map2 and see what it looks like in PDF. So I'm just going to open it with a reader, Adobe Reader. And cool. So my map sheet is looking like it should look. And so what's important here is I have my dynamic text for coordinate systems. I have my graticules. And I also have my map features. And we can see the dramatic changes that have taken place between the two. It's up to you what two systems for small scale mapping you would like to use for this assignment. But you want to make sure that you're using a projected system and it's based on the world mapping options located in your data frame properties for coordinate systems. So good luck with this assignment, and this is the conclusion of part 2 of the map projections assignment.